Hey, what's up, guys? This is Cody the Coin Raptor, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about some very important metrics, including the fact that the hash rate has hit a new all-time high for Bitcoin and what that means for the overall market. And I'm also going to go ahead and take a look at our price TA and give us an idea on our supports and resistances and what I'm expecting for the next week on our price action. But before we get to that, be sure to subscribe, be sure to hit that like button, and be sure to follow me on Twitter or now X, and also on Threads as well. So Bitcoin over the last couple of days has been fairly solid. We've seen in the last couple of days, starting on Tuesday, we've had 4 straight green days. And those are 4 straight green days with a fairly high amount of volume. Now, you'll notice here on the RSI, we're sitting at 51. 51 is not super crazy bought, or it's not oversold or overbought at this point, but it is kind of more in the middle of the range. So what we're looking at right now for Bitcoin is we've seen a little bit of a pop here. We've seen it push past resistance here at about 26,400, and now it's kind of more heading sideways between the 26,400 and then this 200-day moving average. So what we want to see for Bitcoin is we want to observe a strong breakout above those levels. What we want to see is a push above that 200-week moving average, or that 200-day moving average right here. We want to see a very strong green candle printed above that, and then we want to wind up seeing another one right after that to kind of show that this breakout is still happening, basically above this 200-day moving average. And that would signify to me that we're in a short-term change in trend, a bullish change in trend. And then once you breach that 27,000 level, then you have to push past this 27,700 level. Now, this level, I think, is the ultimate level right here of resistance. If you can actually you can push past this level, then I would actually wind up becoming more bullish on Bitcoin in the short term. So what we're trying to get right now is a strong push above this level, and what we want to see is Bitcoin demolish this resistance here and then push higher. But at the moment, we are still, if we zoom out here a little bit, we are still in kind of a really nasty downtrend for Bitcoin. And it looks as though it's testing the support level that it just made here, this 26,400 level. We can go ahead and change this to support. But what we want to see is it hold this support level and then push higher to those levels I mentioned before, and that would be the bullish case scenario. The bearish case scenario is that this support does not hold. The short-term downtrend is still intact, and then we wind up seeing it pull back to this 25,000 level. So it's definitely a possibility that we can see a pullback to 25K. I do think that's still on the board right now because the price action hasn't shown us anything different. But if you're bullish, you need to see it hold this support level. The direction that Bitcoin goes in the future is likely going to be dictated here by the support level. If it holds, it's going to move higher. If it doesn't hold, then it's moving lower. So that's basically what I would say here. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this. I'm going to be monitoring this as the week goes on, and then I'll go ahead and give you guys updates on my Twitter. So I also want to go ahead and talk about the dollar index. So the dollar index is incredibly strong right now, and the dollar index has been basically pumping ever since July, about July 14th, July 15th, and now it is at a point of strong resistance. If we go ahead and look at the weekly here, we can see that the strong resistance is at about $105. And so what this means right now is that the dollar index, which usually trades inversely to Bitcoin, is actually now approaching strong resistance. So if it can't go above this level, it's going to be very bullish for Bitcoin. And if it can actually break out, however, that would continue to be bearish for Bitcoin. Now, you got to think at some point, the dollar index has had just non-stop of an uptrend here. There has been very, very, very little resistance, and we haven't even seen any red candles. So I think at some point the dollar index has got to pause. The dollar index has got to stop and take a breather. You know, the strength of the dollar, as measured by comparing it to other currencies, has to eventually, you know, come back down again for a little bit. So I do think we're actually due for a pause in a pullback here in the dollar index, at least in the short term, and I think that would actually be fairly bullish for Bitcoin. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the Bitcoin dominance. So Bitcoin dominance, you can see here, is fairly high. We're sitting at a level of about 49%, and it actually broke out of the downtrend that I had in here before, and now it looks like it's trying to reestablish a new uptrend for the Bitcoin dominance. And to me, that would make sense given the fact that we're in an environment right now where people are fearful. They want to stick to assets they know and they love, aka Bitcoin, and they're going to go ahead and get rid of other assets that are more speculative. And so in times of, I would say, fear, because it's kind of a time of fear right now, I would say that we're probably going to wind up pushing higher here on this Bitcoin dominance. What you want to see is it push out above 50%. That's going to be a huge level. And then it could potentially return to a higher level of resistance here at about 53%. I think that's definitely very possible for Bitcoin dominance. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at our perpetual futures. So perpetual futures, I've done a whole analysis on this on Twitter of what happened over the past couple of days, but the abridged version is that we saw a huge shakeout on the 14th of September, a couple of days ago. A huge number of shorts got liquidated, and then longs entered the market, and then we saw just a complete and total collapse of any open interest. So the number of contracts has gone down pretty dramatically, and so volatility right now is very low for Bitcoin in the contracts market, and traders seem to be net bullish at the moment. So this is something I'm going to be watching very closely, because this can really tell us about a trader sentiment and where Bitcoin is going in the short term. And for now, it looks like there's just not a lot of volatility in the system. There's not a lot of contracts. There's not a lot of action going on right now, but it seems like the longs are mostly dominant for now. Now, I also want to go ahead and talk about options as well. So options, very interesting what's going on in the options market right now. We've seen that we have the highest number of expirations on the 29th of September. And we see here that the max pain price is $26,500, which is basically where Bitcoin is right now. So it's entirely possible that, at least on the options market, that these traders are going to try to keep the price near that 26,500 level. So that's just something else that I think factors into the price action for the month. And the goal here for them is to try and keep it at that level at about the 29th of September in order to cause the most losses among the buyers. So that's what we're looking at right now for this. It's mostly heavily in calls as usual. It does tend to be more heavily favored for calls as opposed to puts, but it's about almost $2 billion worth of calls and about $1 billion or so worth of puts that expire on the 29th of September. We could see some huge volatility by the end of the week. Now, another thing I found that was very important here to mention is the long-term holder supply. Okay, we've mentioned long-term holder supply on this channel before in the past, but long-term holder supply right now is actually basically at a new all-time high. All right, so what this means is that long-term holders tend to be defined as addresses that have held Bitcoin for at least 155 days, but there's a little bit of play in that. But the point is, it's almost 6 months, and once you get past that 6 months mark, that address is more likely to hold Bitcoin and less likely to sell it. Okay, so as this number moves up, we're going to see less just willingness and less desire to sell, as opposed to people who bought Bitcoin in the past couple of months or past couple of weeks, who basically want to get in and get out and trade it. So the short-term, or the long-term holder supply right now is at a new all-time high. It's actually sitting at about 82%. which is, as I said before, higher than at any other point in Bitcoin's history. So we're seeing just a massive amount of people who have bought Bitcoin and have no interest whatsoever in selling it, and it's about 82% of the total supply. Now, if you guys are interested in this, you can go take a look at Chain Exposed that has a whole list and some other indicators that I think are fairly good. But you can go ahead and take a look at that. Go to chainexposed.com and check out their other metrics. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the exchange reserve. Okay, so exchange reserve on CryptoQuant shows us that we're kind of continuing the trend over the past couple of days, which is that Bitcoin is being taken off of exchanges. Right now, it's at almost to the bottom, very close to where we were back in the 29th of August here at about 2,039,000. Now it's at about 2,040,000, so it's very close. There have been a lot of buyers on taking Bitcoin off the exchanges in the past couple of weeks. Now, the headline. So let's talk about the hash rate. We go over here to the hash rate index. We can see here that the hash rate has also hit a new all-time high at about 430 exahashes per second. Okay, so what this means in practice, and especially as we zoom out, we can see how incredibly steep this uptrend is. What this means in practice is that more miners are being added to the system, more miners are being added to the blockchain. The hashing power or the processing power of the blockchain continues to climb, even though there's a lot of FUD, even though there's a lot of doubt and a lot of uncertainty about the future of Bitcoin and the future of the crypto market. This just goes to show you that there's still pretty large demand for Bitcoin, especially when it comes to the miners and the mining community. We continue to see more miners adding to the network. Okay, this is important. This is very important for Bitcoin because if we have more miners, that means we're going to be having more hashing power, and more hashing power means it's going to be more difficult to conduct an attack on the Bitcoin network. Okay. In order to conduct a 51% attack, you have to have more than half of the amount of available hashing power, okay? So the higher that number is, the more resources it's going to take in order to get that 51% attack. Next, I want to talk about what's been going on with the miners and the miners reserve, okay? So miners reserve, the number of coins in miners' wallets right now starting to tick up. So we saw that again from about the 31st of August, we've seen an increase in the number of coins in miners' wallets, and it's following, broadly speaking, the price increase we've seen over the past couple of weeks. Miners right now are not selling. They were selling back in August. Now they've pulled up. We've had an uptrend, and they've increased the number of coins in their wallets. And right now they are not selling. They're probably waiting for the price to climb back up again in order to sell. But it is possible that if we get a big dump, that they will sell into that dump as well. But if we take a look at the sellers right now, and especially I want to focus right now on the short-term holders. Okay. The short-term holders went from being massively underwater, okay, here with the SOPR. They went all the way here from about 0.96 for the SOPR all the way up to what we have here at about 0.99 or almost 1. All right, so what that means is that over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a return to profitability for short-term holders. That means traders who bought back in, let's say about 25K. Now they've actually returned to profit, and that makes sense because we're at about 26.5. And so we're actually starting to see a bit of a recovery in the market after that massive plunge we had near 25K a couple of weeks ago. And then finally, we're going to take a look at the Puell multiple. Puell multiple is showing us that miner profitability is still very strong. In fact, if we compare this to where it's been in the past, especially we've seen over the past, let's say, year to date, and since March or so, from about March to about now, we've seen that the miners have been in profitability, and they've been in profitability comparable to levels back in December of 2021, or even September of 2021, or around July of 2021. So we've seen that right now, miners are not in a bad shape. The miners are still profitable according to the Puell multiple, and they continue to bring online more rigs, more ASICs, more mining units in order to increase the hashing power of the blockchain. So the underlying fundamentals of Bitcoin are still very strong, even though we've gone through the past couple of months being extreme FUD and just fear and bad news, especially from the SEC, okay? We've seen that the underlying fundamentals of Bitcoin still remain very strong. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is what's going on this week. So this week, we have our Fed Chair, Jerome Powell, is going to be speaking on Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. This is Eastern time, okay? And then the Fed's going to be making an interest rate decision that day as well, all right? This is very important. If they raise rates, it's not going to be good for Bitcoin. If they pause or they stay at the current rates, then it will be okay. But if they decide, if they try to be just a little bit less hawkish, that would be bullish. So if they're a bit dovish, then we could wind up seeing Bitcoin spike on that day. You expect that Wednesday we're going to see some extreme volatility depending on what Fed Chair Jerome Powell says. I think he's probably going to be very hawkish as usual. And Thursday we have is jobless claims. That's going to be fairly important to figure out what's going on with the jobs market. And then we have S&P Flash U.S. Services PMI on Friday. And then we have a number of Fed presidents speaking as well. So the big event for the week is going to be Wednesday. Watch out Wednesday. We're going to see some serious volatility, and we're going to see some Bitcoin action. Okay, so that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about the hash rate, and if you think that that's actually a fairly big deal or not. Let me know what you guys are planning on doing in the Bitcoin market right now, and how you plan to take advantage of the current situation. That's all I've got for you guys today. Hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I hope to catch you in the next video.